Well, Bronny James is coming to the Pac-12, and he's going to be a USC Trojan, and that's got ramifications that go beyond the hardwood.
Are Locked On Pac-12, your daily podcast on the Pac-12 Conference. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On Pac-12. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with our media rights-free and beloved Conference of Champions. Like, comment, subscribe, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show, which for the first part of today will be joined by Marc Kulkin. He is here right now. He's the host of Locked On USC. Marc, it just feels like a Hollywood sort of script. Bronny James in Los Angeles. What was your first reaction?
Why did he wait so long to make this decision that everyone knew he was going to make? Look, he had an opportunity to go play for the school that his father would have gone to had he attended college, Ohio State. He chose not to. He had Oregon on the plate where, Phil Knight, hey, give you your own shoe logo. Possible, who knows? But I think everybody knew that Bronny James, his 7.1 million Instagram followers, he's a major influencer. He belongs in LA. And if you're going to capitalize off of your name, image, and likeness, I don't know what those other two destinations can do as well as Los Angeles, Hollywood, bright lights, big city, Lakers playing down the street with your pop. So, I think everybody knew where he was going to go. It's just like, why'd you take so long?
Well, I think Oregon was probably, this may be my personal bias here, but I feel like Oregon was making a pretty compelling pitch here because the Nike connection is very, very real and very strong. I'm pretty sure Phil was at the game with Bronny when LeBron set the scoring record. I know Phil was at the game when LeBron did that. Bronny was probably there in some capacity. But I would just see these little snippets over the interwebs over the last several months of like, hey, it's Phil and Bronny, or hey, it's, Bronny here and whatnot. Why do you think he ultimately landed on USC? How much of it do you think was a basketball play, and how much do you think was what you talked about, which is it's Los Angeles, baby?
I want to say, I would like to believe that he chose USC because he wants to be developed and become a great basketball player. However, he's going to do that, but let's be honest here. He chose LA because of what LA and he can do together. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. His dad plays for the Lakers, literally down the street, a mile and a half away. There was really no other choice to make. So he could have made the easy choice and say, hey, I'll go play up at Oregon and get my own, my own shoe logo. I could go to Ohio State, play where my dad wanted to play. He chose USC because it's a business decision. Bottom line.
Yeah, I think there's a component to that. I really did not know he had 7.1 million on Instagram, but he has quite literally been mentioned for, he's 18 years old. He's probably been, a weekly segment on ESPN for the last 10 or something like that. Like, hey, how's he doing? Hey, look at this over here. Like, I never heard of Sierra Canyon really on the basketball recruiting front, but then you're like, oh, well, that's where Bronny plays. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I want to talk about what this means for USC, Marc, because there were some heavy hitters in there. Ohio State, not a huge basketball tradition, but a big school and a big name. Oregon was going after him really, really hard. A lot of ties there, as we've discussed. What does it say about where the Trojans are at after a first-round exit from the NCAA tournament to see that they can get a guy in Bronny James caliber, who, by the way, is a big name, but is also, in the eyes of the scouting community, a pretty big time player, as we'll talk about. But what does it say about where Andy Enfield has the Trojans right now?
I think it says that Andy Enfield is one hell of a recruiter. And let's keep this in mind. Bronny James isn't even considered the highest rated player in this class. He is the third highest rated player behind Isaiah Collier, who is the number one player in the country, pure point guard, which Andy Enfield hasn't had since he's been at USC, since Jordan McLaughlin left USC. And you also are bringing in Arrington Page, who I believe is considered, top 20, top 30 player in the country as well, power forward. So what Bronny brings is another combo guard to the roster, a terrific perimeter defender, which if you want to play for Andy, you have to play defense first. Offense comes second. But you're also getting a guy, high character, and who high IQ as well. He's not believe it or not, just because he played at Sierra Canyon, he's got a really famous father. From what I've been able to ascertain and watch from him, he's a very humble young man. And I think that is what people are overlooking with Bronny James. Very coachable.
And I think that when you talk about, what gets added to a locker room, I feel like that conversation is kind of reserved for the professional ranks, but it happens in college basketball or college football locker rooms all across the country where you have guys who just don't fit in or cause some problems or come in. And I think that concern, I'm with you, by the way, because like when I think about it, I can't think of a notable quote that Bronny James has given. I don't think he's a big, loud, sort of kid. He seems like he just wants to show up and hoop. And I think that is really impressive for a kid who has been in the public eye since he was literally, I was, kind of being facetious earlier with the tenure comment, but from about the time he was 13 years old, people have talked about Bronny James, but his dad, of course, went through that, right? Because he was in the public eye from the time he was 15, 16 years old. And so he's, of course, helped him along that front. And LeBron, has a polarizing nature to him. But in terms of like bad character off the court drama, that's never been something LeBron has, ever exhibited. And I think he's passed that on to Bronny, which is a testament to LeBron and to Bronny. So do you have any concern at all about, the added attention that Bronny kind of inherently brings to the program and whether or not you could have outside noise being a distraction?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's been part of my concern during the whole process, recruiting process with Bronny. He's had a really good case study to kind of follow. He's seen how his father, has come up through the ranks, become a public figure, not just on the basketball court, but also off the court, the things he does, the things he says. And I'm sure Bronny has picked up on someone that said, hey, you know what? I'm not ready to be LeBron James yet. So it's better to be seen and not heard when you're younger. I was always told that. And I'm assuming he's following that path. Now, with that said, Bronny James, as we were talking about, he's a big name. Galen Center, it fills up for big games. Well, now you're bringing in a celeb. You're bringing in his entourage. You're bringing in all of his 7.1 million Instagram followers who's like, oh, I want to go hang out with Bronny James. And if his father shows up at the game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There you go. I mean,
like there are people now who are going to want to go to the game because they're going to think, well, LeBron could be there. I could see LeBron. I could get a picture with LeBron.
Absolutely. And I don't know, did you watch the Phoenix Suns Denver playoff game last night?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you see how the Phoenix Suns owner kind of got involved in the situation?
He was sitting courtside and Jokic gave him the shove and he flopped a little bit, but he was still a shove and whatnot.
A similar type of environment now with, maybe Drake and his entourage are showing up, hanging out. LeBron James. That's the type of environment that I think you're going to see at Galen Center. I'm not looking for anybody to get pushed and, do the fake flop, but
right.
The point I'm making is Galen Center now is going to be artificially inflated with fans. So that's, it's a positive, but it's also a negative.
Yeah, I think media interest also just skyrockets, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
ESPN's going to want to put USC on TV every chance that they get because you put Bronny there, you put LeBron on TV. Like that's of course a huge ratings draw. I want to ask you about kind of what Bronny's career might look like and also how long it might be, because it could be could be short-lived, but maybe not. We'll talk about that after we talk about FanDuel. You can make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs. Right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. They've got great promotions every day, a safe, secure, and super easy to use app. You get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Bronny James was, until kind of recently, Mark, a 4-star guard, according to 24/7 Sports, got the bump up to 5-star status and such. And look, people can make their own speculations and have their own opinions about why that is. From what I've seen from him, he looks like a good college player. I don't get the sense, though, that even as a 5-star recruit, he's going to come in and just, Zion Williamson style carry you to the Elite Eight. Like that's not the sort of player that USC is getting here, right?
Correct. He is not the put the team on your shoulders type of player and watch me go. He's not LeBron. Let's be honest here.
Right. Yeah, he's only like 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, he's a combo guard. They list him 6'2", 6'3". He's sturdy. I mean, he's got good shoulder. He's got a good frame on him. But let's not confuse him for his father.
No.
What you're getting with Bronny James, again, is a combo guard, a better than average 3-point shooter, and he's working on that as well. He's getting better. I think he'll play a little bit of a backup role at point guard. He has a really good assist to turnover ratio. He still needs to work on his handles a little bit, but that's what you're getting with Bronny James. You're getting a defender. You're getting a good spot-up shooter, high IQ, and I think someone who's going to be able to work his way, maybe not start, but he will definitely be part of the rotation. Because, again, he's kind of like a glue guy. He knows how to play the game, and he might make other players around him better.
So if he's somebody who in your view will come in and, certainly play, obviously you're not going to bring in a guy like that and have him redshirt or something of that nature like that. Like that's not in the cards here for Andy Enfield and USC. And I don't think they would want it to be because, he does have some pretty real upside. But do you think it'll be just the one season at USC?
Yeah, I think it's a one and done situation. I think everybody knew that going in. His father makes it known that he would love to play with his son in the NBA for a year. And, LeBron's getting old. He's 38?
38 years old. Yep.
Yeah. And the body, take it from an old man, the body doesn't recover as quickly as it did when you were 28 years old. So the clock is ticking. When LeBron James said, was talking about how proud he is of his son and his commitment to USC, and he talked about, USC's getting more than just a good basketball player. They're getting a really good young man, but he's going there to play basketball. That kind of tells you he's there for a purpose. He'll be there for a year, and then wherever I'm at is where he's going to be. So that's, I guess, story is going to be told as we go along through this season.
I think it'll be a really fascinating case study of how much weight his name can carry, because at the college level, teams are obviously going to want him because he's a talented player, but he's a big name and he brings attention, he brings interest, he brings intrigue in his sport where that matters tremendously on the recruiting front. But at the professional level, doesn't matter as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like you're going to attract better players if you land a certain. I mean, I guess it's kind of true in free agency, but it's not the same, right? Like there's a clear distinction at that level. What do you think Bronny James needs to do? What kind of season does he need to have to be even a first round pick in the NBA, Jeff? Because like we said, he's not that big. Like he's 6'2", 6'3". Like, okay, yeah, that's big enough to play in the league, but in the NBA, he's going to go out there and be one of the smaller guys out there. Do you think it's a shoe-in that it's a one and done, or could you see him wanting to maybe spend 2 years in college, develop his game, and then be the best prospect possible?
You know what? I would not be opposed to it. And I think for his best interest professionally, that would probably be the right course to take. However, to your question, if he wants to be one and done and jump into the NBA, he needs to become a much more prolific three-point shooter. He needs to figure out how to get to the rim other than just going in a straight line. It's the little things. It's just refining his game. Steph Curry, he can make the everyday three-pointer, but he can also step back 10 feet behind it and make it just as consistently.
Right.
Bronny James needs to be a consistent three-point threat. Right now, he probably shoots it around anywhere from 35 to 38%. I don't know if that's a first-round material in the NBA, especially if you're not a premier point guard or a facilitator.
Yeah, I think the only teams I could really think of that would take him just to like get interest, right, or maybe try to make a push for LeBron, it'd be like the Pistons, the Timberwolves, those franchises that have just been out of it for the Magic. Like he feels like an Orlando Magic pick because how else would LeBron consider going to Orlando?
If I was the head of the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise, I'm saying,
yeah, that's a good one.
Why don't you come back home for a year? We'll retire your number at the end. This is where you started. This is where you should finish. And oh, by the way, why don't you pass the baton on to your young son?
I don't know how my mind didn't jump there. That seems
with age comes wisdom. It will.
As we all know, plenty of wisdom today. Marc Kulkin, he's the host of Locked On USC. If you want daily Trojans content, go check him out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Marc.
Anytime.
All right, time for our next segment and our last one on today's show. It comes via the mailbag, which I so thoroughly enjoy because it means that some of you out there listening to or watching this show would like my thoughts on something. It means you respect my opinion, and I very much appreciate that. And any of you can be a part of the mailbag. You drop a YouTube comment or you hit me up on Twitter at Smalls_55 or at LO_Pac-12. DMs and mentions are wide open. This one comes from Dale's. Hi, Spencer. Hi, Dale. First off, you are my favorite blogger. Oh, stop it. Am I still your favorite blogger? Because I'm also a goofball. I am a Beaver believer and appreciate your treatment of the Bees. Try to be as fair as I can. I know Oregon is usually ranked as the Pac-12 school with the best facilities, and that includes USC and UCLA. Could you rank all Pac-12 schools' facilities, and that includes San Diego State and SMU? Thanks. So for the purpose of this discussion, I don't know if you necessarily meant it this way, Dale, but I took USC and UCLA out of it because I do think that there is still a recruiting component to the facilities arms race when you're talking about impressing kids on their visits. And this was really, really big in like 2008, 2010 is kind of when it started, when college sports really, really started to take off financially and get more money and such. And schools started investing at a big level. And Oregon was indeed, as you mentioned, one of the schools that was at the forefront of really kickstarting that campaign. They had the uniforms and they had the facilities. And that's how they got on people's radars. That's how they got recruits interested because otherwise, who wants to go up to the Pacific Northwest if you're from the state of Texas or the state of Florida, right? Like that was not as appealing of an option before, but now Oregon, of course, has invested so much money, they can recruit all over the place. So this is an interesting list. Now, I would like to state something very, very clearly here. I mean, like super, super, super clearly. This entire list is what you would call an inexact science. I have not been to every single, I compiled some research, talked to a couple people who have been to these sorts of places and got their thoughts and whatnot. But when I am ranking these particular facilities, and I'm curious as to your thoughts as well, drop them in the YouTube comments or shoot me a note again at Smalls_55 or at LO_Pac-12. Those are the handles. I'm thinking about what your football stadium is like, whether or not you've invested in things like weight rooms and facilities and, places for players to go, locker rooms and everything like that. But also the other components of your athletic department, right? What's your basketball stadium like? What's your baseball stadium like? Like the whole kind of big picture here in terms of who's got the best facility. So it was an easy one. I don't think I'm being biased here in saying Oregon is number one. They are at the top. They have put an obscene amount of money into that campus. I've been there before. I've walked through all the different buildings they have, practice facility, Mashofsky Center, everything that they've got. The Autzen Stadium, of course, has had a lot of renovations and whatnot and upkeep. They have a new scoreboard they put in, I think, just a couple years ago. I haven't seen it in person because I haven't been back to Autzen in a while, but I think everybody kind of agrees Oregon's number one. But that's kind of where it stopped being easy for me. So second one I put Washington. Now, Washington has a healthy amount of money, right? In the realignment discussion, I've talked about how they are a school that can survive and thrive in basically any conference and keep up financially because they're a big television draw. They've got a lot of money. They're in Seattle. I don't think anybody's that's left is really on Oregon's level. Stanford could be if they wanted to, but they don't really want to right now. But I think Oregon, I've got Oregon first, Washington second. And I've seen a lot of Washington's at campus as well and their athletic facilities. It's all very, very impressive. I've got Stanford third. Now, this is where it got kind of tough. Like I wrote down when I was putting together my list, Oregon, Washington, then it gets kind of murky. And this is why I'm curious as to all your guys' thoughts, because I bet some of you out there have been to these places, maybe known people who have played at these schools or who have an idea of kind of like little details I might be overlooking here. By all means, this is like something I prepared for, but I'd still consider somewhat of a rough draft. So I've got Stanford at number 3. Stanford has got a lot of money, and they have put more into athletics than you think. I've been inside their basketball gym too. Super nice. Always liked it. A really, really fun place to call a game when you actually like have a crowd in there. But I was able to do that back in college. Colorado number 4. Now, Colorado at number 4 here. They have got, again, we've seen a lot of inside access thanks to Coach Prime's arrival because he, is all into that sort of stuff, which I totally understand. But I'm looking at their football stadium, which has like a little bit of an older feel to it. But if you're talking about bringing a recruit on a visit, if you get a 70-degree day in Boulder and you got those mountains that are snow-capped in the background, man, that combined with the fact that they do actually have very nice facilities, right? And by the way, your ranking on this list that I have put together here is not indicative of the fact that you don't have really nice facilities compared to, most colleges in the country, right? But when you're just looking at other Pac-12 schools, it can be a tough standard to get to. So I've got Colorado number 4. Now, this is where it gets tricky. And by the way, I've put SMU and San Diego State in here because those are my anticipated Pac-12 expansion teams that hopefully arrive sooner rather than later. But I'm not getting my hopes up, as I talked about on yesterday's show, which you should go check out. But Oregon State is at number 5. They could be a touch high on this list. But do you know how much money went into the new athletics renovations, including the remodel at Reser Stadium, which limited their capacity a season ago, was still a very tough place to play, but all that sort of stuff. Do you know how much money they've put into that now over the last couple of years? $153 million. Yeah, I got to be honest. It was higher than I thought it was going to be. Because you think of Oregon State, you think of Corvallis, you think of not having as much money as Oregon, you think of being lower in the rung of, realignment candidates in terms of could they go to another Power 5 conference, all that sort of stuff. And yet, $153 million into a new stadium, into new facilities, and all this sort of stuff. I think it's going to be pretty darn nice. I'm excited for it to finish so that Beaver fans can get back in there and be at full capacity there at Reser Stadium. So I've got them at number 5, and then right on their tails, again, this is kind of based on a dollar figure, SMU. Now, SMU, we could very well look back, and I don't have an SMU insider to bring on the show or to ask, at least not yet. We'll get there. But SMU is in the midst right now of a $100 million renovation. So I looked at Oregon State and said 153, SMU 100, and I was like, well, If they've got 53 million more going into it, it's probably going to be a bit nicer or more expansive or whatnot. But SMU's got a lot of money. Like SMU can really, really put money into athletics if they choose. They've got a lot of wealthy donors. They got a lot of money coming through that school. And their facilities are pretty nice too. Their football stadium, like, has a grassy knoll on it, which I think is kind of a cool concept. But they've renovated it so that their capacity is a bit higher. I wonder why. I wonder what they could be doing that for in the last couple of years. Almost like anyway. So I've got SMU there, right on their heels. I've got Utah. I've been to Rice-Eccles Stadium before. I've been up in their press box, been a part of a radio broadcast for a Utah football game. It's all super impressive. The stadium, like honestly, Utah could be low on this list, but this is kind of like the quintessential example of Utah has really, really nice facilities. I just don't know if it's like quite on, a Colorado or a Washington level, right? But like if you go in there, it's all really, really impressive. So I put Utah there at number 7. San Diego State, they've got a brand new stadium. I've got them right behind Utah, followed by Arizona State. Now, Arizona State's one of the largest public schools. I think the largest public school from enrollment in the country. Their campus is ginormous. Like it is absolutely huge and bigly massive. The reason I've got Arizona State a bit lower is their football stadium is like, it's all right. Like I haven't seen their weight room. Their basketball gym is fine. And that's one of the reasons I have San Diego State above them, by the way. San Diego State's basketball gym, really, really cool. But Arizona State's football stadium is like, it's okay. Like it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's also just kind of like it's just there. I've got them a touch above Arizona. If I'm misguided on that, by all means, somebody can let me know. But the reason I've got Arizona State above Arizona is just kind of an inclination as to which school is going to have more money. And that answer to me seems like it would be Arizona State, given the size of the schools and, the campuses and whatnot. But I don't think Arizona is like majorly struggling for cash. And then I've got, Arizona number 10, number 11, Washington State. They put some money into their football stadium. So that's why I've got them above Cal, who's last. Now, here's the good news. I'm going to end on a positive note about Cal here. How about this? So Cal does not have great facilities. Their stadium is got, a lot of history to it, but it's not really that nice. Like it's just, it's not the best. But one of the worst things about Cal is that Cal men's basketball just won 3 games, right? Historically bad season. They are breaking ground, according to John Rothstein, who got the report from Mark Madsen. They are breaking ground on a new basketball facility that is going to cost millions and millions of dollars, because right now, Cal men's basketball, they practice at the rec center, like where students go to play pickup or volleyball or pickleball or whatever. Like that is mind-blowingly pathetic for a Power 5 institution in the Bay Area. But Mark Madsen continues to look like an excellent hire for the Golden Bears. Their baseball stadium is also like, that's not it. Like it's in the middle of buildings. It doesn't have a great scenic view and whatnot. So Cal is last, but Cal might be moving up the list. But curious as to all your thoughts. If I missed anything, overlooked something, let me know. Some of this was kind of based on conjecture because I haven't been to, I haven't. This may shock you. I was not a highly rated football recruit because I wasn't any kind of football recruit coming out of high school. So I haven't toured all of these places in depth, though I have been to several of their campuses before. I think that's enough for today. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.